Okay. All right, guys, my special guest tonight is Lucy. She's an activist. You've seen her on here before. You've also seen a pretty viral video of her recently, if you're on Twitter, or if you saw this Rising clip that we're going to go through tonight. I also worked with Lucy when we went to Camp Dada like last year. So this is someone who's truly passionate about the things, the issues that they're fighting for. And Lucy is also a part of Indie News Network and has a show called Blue Moon Red Wine. Welcome back, Lucy.
Thank you, Sabby.
Okay, so Lucy, like we played the video on here, and other people have gone through the video as well with your appearance at AOC's town hall. But we'd like to get the backstory because I want people to understand like how these events actually operate. So can you walk us through the events that day? Like what happened when you got there? And I know Roger Meadows was with you too.
Yeah, so I've been to 2 AOC town halls. One was like when she was first getting elected. And it was like right after she was like introducing the whole Green New Deal thing back in 2018. And she was pretending to be like woman of the people. And at the time, I still actually supported her. That's why I went. It was interesting because the environment was completely different. At the first town hall, there were some young people from the neighborhood that were doing a poetry reading. There was food. It really seemed like a popular meeting. Just like and then in this one, there were only older constituents there. Some of them seemed to be handing in pre-written questions. I'm not really sure. That was like my general sense. Or they make you, as you said in your previous show, write down your questions. Yep. And then they only take the softball questions. But mainly it was like AOC in the front doing this extremely long PowerPoint that was basically like full of Democrat propaganda. And she talked for like an hour. And then the Q&A was like 10 minutes. And they only took a few questions and then they cut it off. There were at least like 10 people still waiting to ask their question. So at the very end, when I realized that this was their strategy to have a very long PowerPoint presentation and then have a very short Q&A, and then they cut you off and then you got to go. So, yep. Like this whole civility thing is ridiculous because they act like we are living in some kind of democratic society, like Hill Rising, the people on Hill Rising still believe this, when in reality, it's pre-scripted. Some of the constituents might be pre-scripted too. They only take the softball questions, and they won't take any of the spicy questions, right? They're not even going to entertain that, and then you got to go. So that's basically how these town halls are. And in AOC's town hall specifically, it's actually full of feds. Like you could see it in the video. There's like one guy kind of indicating her on what to say. You can see him in the front in Lewis's video. And then there's like these preppy thugs all over the place and cops. Like this is not the kind of democratic thing where where you even have time to civilly make a point. Or, even show any kind of like nuance in your opinions. Like you try getting nuance in your opinions out in a 10-second window. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
I just want to jump in here for a second to explain to people, even if you remember the town halls that we watched for the 2020 election of Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, all those town halls, and they make it seem like they're calling on someone in the audience. I'm starting to lose some of my letters here, Lucy. I've lived in Boston for too long, but I almost said audience. But anywho, they make it seem like they're calling on that person in the audience. Those questions have already been submitted before the town hall, and they've already been pre-selected. So they already know what questions they're going to respond to. A lot of people don't realize that if you've never been to those events and if you're only watching mainstream media.
Exactly. Yeah. People have no idea. And then the other thing that was really funny is that they said that they were going to have interpretation, and I assumed that they would have Spanish, right? Because it's, you know, in that area it's actually more African Americans, but in the district in general it's like 60% Hispanic, so usually they have Spanish translation. No, when they said interpretation, it was for the deaf. So, you know, I was just like, what is this? You know, wait, I don't understand. You know, I'm sure there's some deaf people in the audience, but that's not like the majority need in that district. So it was just so funny. So basically the thing I said was the only comprehensible thing to some of the people in that town hall who mostly speak Spanish than the entire town hall. So, you know, my intention was actually not to get on Hill Rising. It was for it to be shared on Twitter among the Spanish speaking like constituents. Maybe I thought that it might get shared a little bit on Twitter in Spanish. That was my hope. But the other reason I did it in Spanish is because AOC is actually not very good at Spanish, but she tries to pretend that she is, because she really does play a lot with identity politics. So like our district, it's very diverse. And she was very careful when she was getting elected about not playing identity politics, because there's like lots of different kinds of people in our area. You know, there's white and black and brown, you know, there's everything. There's, you know, Eastern Europeans and African Americans, and there's Puerto Ricans and people from other parts of Latin America, South Asia, Arabs. Like it's so diverse that you cannot play identity politics in our district because it just really doesn't work. And then she got into Congress and she's giving this impression that like, you know, she'll like put out phrases that are very popular with the Puerto Rican community all the time on social media. You know what I mean? Like she does this, and there's nothing wrong with it, but people are just figuring out, oh, she doesn't really speak Spanish. You know, she doesn't really understand what's going on. And because I knew that it would take her a little time to catch on, that's what allowed me to talk for so long. Because otherwise, if the preppy guy, like the tall one beside me, had understood what I was saying, I would have gotten kicked out way before even telling people that we were signing people outside to vote independent. So that's why I did that.
Yeah, that was smart. So the Hill Rising actually commented about Lucy's appearance here. We're going to walk through this. I'm going to pause here and there, and I want to get your take on some of this, Lucy, but here we go. Civility politics.
At Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's constituent town hall on Friday, audience member Lucy Cann stood up and called the Congress.
I got to pause like right off the bat. I thought this town hall took place on Saturday.
Yeah, it was on Saturday.
Okay. So see, the information isn't even correct. And this is not like I'm not trying to nitpick, so to speak, but it's just there were a couple of things in this segment that they did not get right. And that's why I think, and I still stand by this, you know, and I've been on Rising a couple of times, but I still stand by this. I think the correct thing to do would have been to bring Lucy on. Because they're trying to figure out what Lucy was trying to do instead of just bringing her on and having Lucy explain it from her own perspective. But we'll get into it.
Woman from New York out on her support of funding the war in Ukraine. Let's watch that.
Hace 40 años que no hay una ley de amnistía en este país. ¿Ok? Todavía no hay una ley de amnistía en este país. Y el Partido Demócrata mandó 100 billones de dólares a nazis en Ucrania, que esta señora votó para eso. En este país necesitamos un tercer partido, al estilo de AMLO en México y Petro en Colombia y Boric en Chile. El Partido Demócrata no está haciendo nada por nosotros. Nosotros nos estamos registrando independiente, porque el Partido Demócrata no hace nada por nosotros. No, señora, no. Necesitamos registrarnos independientes. Yo voy a estar afuera registrando a la gente independiente.
So this is the part here, Lucy, where you were saying, like, for people wondering, like, you know, why was it in Spanish? This is what Lucy's saying. Like, this is why Lucy was able to talk for as long as you were able to talk for, because otherwise I think they would have started to cut you off when you mentioned the funding for Ukraine. What do you think?
I mean, pretty much, because a lot of her staff, like the security, a lot of them did not speak Spanish as much as the actual constituents, like the audience. And then also a lot of her staff doesn't speak very well. There's like various levels of fluency, you know, but I'm very fluent. So I knew that if I spoke very fast, it would get shared on social media so that other people in our district that don't go to these town halls might maybe see it. That was the entire point. So, you know, and like I love shows like RBN and stuff, but to be very honest, like a lot of people in my area, they speak other languages, you know, they speak Spanish or Arabic or Bengali, whatever. So it would be great if this independent message started to get shared in other languages, because otherwise people don't even find out about this funding to Ukraine stuff. They don't even find out about it. So it really was a strategy. And then people will say like, oh, this was a stunt. Listen, if I can get people to talk about amnesty, it's now a topic on independent media, this amnesty law. And the Hill Rising, they didn't even mention that at all. The fact that I talked about immigration amnesty. And I think people don't even realize that amnesty that Reagan passed in 1986, it's actually what enables people to apply for citizenship. For a lot of job categories, there is no immigration process. Like there's an immigration process for middle-class professionals, or in some cases, there's like a visa lottery, or if you get married to someone, things like that. But for the majority of restaurant workers in this country, construction workers, it really is a South-North immigration which there is no immigration process. That's why there are so many illegal immigrants in this country. So in order to solve that problem, you need a legal process. And we don't have a legal process for entire subsectors of the economy right now. People that work in meatpacking, restaurants, construction workers. So they can either make a category for those kinds of jobs, you know, like otherwise we're going to keep having loads of illegal immigration. They need to have a system for it. And they don't, because our immigration system is very classist. Like my husband, for example, he's an engineer. It wasn't as hard for him as for other people to apply for citizenship. But if you're a restaurant worker, a construction worker, you know, the people I know that are nannies or babysitters, home healthcare workers, all kinds of things, you know, there really is no process for a lot of these people. So it's not true that there's a legal process for immigration right now for all job categories. It just doesn't work that way.
It's 100% true. And a lot of my students were international students, and there were some of them that honestly, depending on what country they were coming from, we didn't even know if they were going to be able to get here in time for orientation. If we had students coming from Iran, like it was really taking a risk because there was no guarantee, because their visa process, it's so difficult just to get them here, even though they're students, because of the country that they're coming from. So that's another thing too, depending on which country you come from can also affect how long this process takes. But I'll go on here.
Thank you. Why does she gotta leave? She's addressing her government for redress of grievance. There are many ways to address that. No. We're gonna go. She's
In a new $2.5 billion aid package, the U.S. has sent 90 Stryker combat vehicles and an additional 59 Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine, as well as hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition, but not tanks.
According to the AP, Germany said it will not send its own Leopard tanks to Ukraine unless the U.S. sends the Abrams. The United States said that the Abrams tank would not be a good fit for the current fight because of its frequent maintenance and fueling needs. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham said he's tired of the SHIT show and that the U.S. and Germany should send tanks to Ukraine as, quote, the world order is at stake. So, Robbie, my radar is a little bit about this tank question. I will say I feel very conflicted about these sort of AOC town hall videos. It seems now to become like this. It's almost a meme now. People will go to try to embarrass and humiliate her by disrupting the town hall. Now, of course, constituents.
I just want to pause there for a second. Isn't that what AOC said that protesters were supposed to do, Lucy? Isn't that what AOC said when she first started running, that they were supposed to disrupt?
I mean, that's exactly what she said. And she really gave a mistaken appearance to her constituents by having like her initial town halls be like this assortment, this like look like a community meeting, and the town halls now they're like a nest of security. You know, the environment drastically changed in 4 years. Of like this woman Batya, I don't know where she lives. I think she actually, I like Googled her after I saw this segment, and she lives in New York. But you know, she's so concerned about, you know, the fact that I was improper, as if there's a polite venue where you can talk about these things. There isn't. And if she thinks it's exasperating and she says, oh, it's a little bit of a stunt. But who's sharing the stunt? She's sharing it. So if she doesn't want to pay attention to these stupid stunts, then she shouldn't share them. You know, like I feel like she's telling on herself right there. You know, she could have, I've been on Twitter, YouTube for at least a year. She could have reached out to people to ask their opinion about any other thing. But the only time I've ever been like, you know, gotten on Hill Rising is due to this stupid stunt. And because of that, I think more people should go to these town halls, not AOC, whoever represents your area, you know, that's accessible to you. You should go to their town hall, go with a friend, call them out and take a video and share it on social media and register people independent. Because the problem is,
that's one of the things that you guys were doing also. Like you were telling people, I will be registering people independent outside. So I think this was another thing I brought up, like, which I don't think they mentioned that in this segment. It wasn't just like you guys just showed up there and started heckling people. You actually had an action to follow up after the fact. Like, okay, these are the problems with what you are doing, Congresswoman, and this is what the action that we are going to take to try to move things in a different direction. And they don't mention, I don't think they mentioned, I watched this twice. I don't think they said that, but we'll see. But I think that piece was very important for people to hear.
Have a right to speak back to their congressperson, but this particular woman was, you know, registering people for an independent party. Right. And so when she left, she said, meet me outside, I'll register you. The Democrats and the Republicans are both terrible. And, you know, much as I agree that the Democrats and the Republicans leave much to be desired, much as I find, you know, Representative Ocasio-Cortez's, you know, stance on funding to Ukraine to be the wrong one, I am a little bit getting tired of this, you know, who can humiliate her the most. I mean, come on, guys. Like, you know, she's a congresswoman. I'm sure she's doing her best. I don't.
How does she know that AOC is doing her best? And why is she getting tired of it? If so far, she agreed with what you said. She agreed that she doesn't approve of AOC, you know, approving the funding, you know, the billions of dollars funding to Ukraine. So she agreed with that statement. She also agreed that both parties are problematic. So why is she getting tired of people confronting AOC? And then she goes, I'm sure she's doing her best. How does she know if AOC is doing her best? Batya's not in Congress.
I mean, she's not in Congress. And to be very honest, like, you know, there is a reason. I do think people show up at AOC's protests. Why? Because they do think some people do think that it'll get more attention, which is, you're right. You know, if you live in the area, whatever. I am actually like one of her constituents. I live in the area and I volunteered for her in 2018 and she hasn't done anything that she said that she was going to do at all. You know, and I think I'm really actually following the Roger Meadows because I think, like, I've seen a lot of these third parties pop up, and I think Roger Meadows has very good strategy. And his idea is to register independent, which isn't the independent party. It's no party. It's to not register, basically unregister from all parties. And a lot of us are still registered Democrat just because we have an unregistered Democrat. Like I was like that actually for many years. So basically, it's just a way of reversing the damage that Bernie did and saying, listen, we're here because we might mentally be thinking, oh, we're independent. But the Democrats, they haven't seen us like unregistered. Like, no, I'm unregistering. So showing up at a town hall, telling them that we are registering independent, standing outside and talking to people in the area that we are registering independent. And I'd like to, not right now because I'm a little busy with work and stuff, but I'd like to eventually maybe like gather some donations or mutual aid and maybe pay off some food trucks or street vendors or whatever and register people independent right there on the street or on the subway, whatever. So, I think that it could be something that would resemble tabling, like the way people did during the Bernie campaign, that you only have to do for like 5-10 minutes, 2 hours, however much time you have. But we have to start figuring out a way to do that, because otherwise we're not going to get anywhere. We could think internally that we are tired of this Democratic Party, but when you're just doing your own thing and you're mentally tired, you haven't told them. You haven't showed up and told them. Like
That's right. You have to actually change the registration. Let's go on because there's more here.
I agree with her about much. I think she's wrong about a lot of things. I don't like how she uses social media. I don't like a lot of things about her. But it's just enough already. Like this is not good for anybody. This doesn't accomplish anything. Just humiliating somebody because you know that will get a lot of attention.
When she says this isn't good for anybody, who is she talking about? Good for who? Because the people that it's really not good for are the politician. Like, that's who it's not good for. So to say that, again, she's agreeing with just about everything that you said in that video, agreeing with it, but then to say, I'm getting kind of tired of it, this isn't good for anybody. This goes back to the civility politics issue. And we're going to talk about this on Call In tonight. Because why is it just seems like to me that there are certain people, let's just call them the professional managerial class. There are certain people that feel like they are the ones that can decide when enough is enough. They are the ones that can decide whether or not your protesting is correct if you're doing it in the right way. They are the ones that decide whether or not your activism is done correctly as well. And at the same time, they're not activists. At the same time, they're not protesting. They're not doing any of these things. But in a way, it's almost like they become the gatekeeper of direct action and civility politics.
Yeah, I mean, well, these two, they have a show with 1.5 million subscribers, right? I don't know how much they're allowed to actually state their own opinions on the show. So I'm not sure about that. But it did actually seem like this was this lady's actual opinion.
Yeah.
So they act like everybody has a show with 1.5 million subscribers where you can just sit down and analyze the pros and cons of each issue so that you could, I am capable of doing that too. Like, if you ask me about immigration or war in Ukraine or defense spending or whatever the topic is, I could talk to different kinds of people across the political aisle, and I could try to find a position, like a moderate position, in a nice tone of voice. But I need an hour to do that. At the town hall, I had 10 seconds to get my point out, and people were analyzing it as if I have, 1 or 2 hours to explain the nuance of these positions. This kind of thing, it's like you got 5 to 10 seconds, run, go, and leave. Before this guy, the guy didn't even let me get a full sentence out when I was starting.
Well, I'm thinking about some of the leaders that we've had in the past. Like, what would they have said, and not just like these two in particular, but just like that class. Like, what would they have said to someone like Malcolm X? Because Malcolm X did not use civility politics. I mean, what would have they said to him? Like, you're being rude. It's too crass. It's too much. Enough is enough. Stop. What would they have said to MLK? Okay, this whole sit-in thing that you guys are doing and the busing thing, we get the point. Enough is enough. Stop. I'm getting tired of it already. What would they have said?
I don't know, but I think more people should just go to their town halls and, take a little video, send it to me, and I'll tweet it out. My Twitter handle is LucyCan22, or tweet at tweet at you, Sabby Sabs, or indienews.network. I'm just, because more people need their opinions heard. There's a lot of topics that I don't know about, that a lot of parts of the country. After that town hall, somebody actually sent me a video of of them heckling a politician in the state of Colorado, and they did that several years ago. And I was like, wow, I never found out about this. So I think it would be great if if you disagree with me on some issue, fine, but go heckle your politician on whatever issue that you think people need solved in your community, and let's make this a wave, because yes, it is a little bit of it does come across as a stunt when it's AOC's district. I actually live here, so
Right.
This is not I did not register my address in AOC's district in order to follow AOC's political career. I lived there before I knew about her existence. So I don't know who they think they're talking to, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a little bit more here.
I have very little sympathy for that kind of thing. It just really, I'm really starting to sour on it. It's making me feel sorry for her, and it's making me defend her. And even though I agree with the constituent, I agree with what she's saying. Where is the anti-war left? The anti-war left is dead, and AOC is perhaps the face of that. But this kind of thing, I don't know, Robbie. Where are you on this?
No, I'm glad you bring that up. I think it's one thing for a constituent to attend these town hall events and ask her very pointed questions about why she continues to support this. The tone of the question can be confrontational and angry, and she can say in the question, and by the way, we need an independent third-party movement that is going to hold Democrats accountable for abandoning the left on foreign interventionism, and I'm signing people outside after this event. Say it in 10 seconds. Ask the question. Be confrontational. That's fine. But when you just come to an event and kind of hijack it and start shouting down the speaker, I mean, the rest of the people there, they have their own questions they want to ask. They want AOC, I'm sure, to address a lot of things in addition to that. If you're hijacking the event, and I don't know how long that went on.
So he says he doesn't know how long it went on. But see, this is the other piece that I have to say again here. I really do think they should have brought you on the show and talked to you about it in person, and not assuming what happened there, because you were actually there. And I feel like this kind of comes across to me as tone policing when Robbie says, oh, well, this is how she should have said it. It should have been come across this way. And it's just, again, it's always the people who are not the activists, who are not the protesters, trying to tell activists how they should speak, how they should behave. And it's appalling to me. Again, I feel like it's a lot of gatekeeping, and who makes them the authority of what activism should be. So to me, it's easy to sit back and tell someone how you should have said it. I don't see them going to town halls and putting pressure on these politicians. So this is a big, like Brother Daniel said, it's tone policing. I don't like that. I really don't. Why is that the focus so much on what Lucy said and the way Lucy said it, instead of focusing on the fact that AOC is a failed politician, one of the most ineffective politicians that you have in Congress right now, and that AOC abandoned the left so that she could be a careerist? Why aren't they focusing on the failures that she has done that brought someone like Lucy to come out and say what she said? I want to get your take on that, Lucy.
I mean, that's exactly it. I just want to follow one of the comments that I said, that someone that didn't like this strategy of registering independent. Roger Meadows, I'm following his strategy, by the way. I consider him to be the strategist in this. He's going to talk about it on your call-in. Maybe he'll comment it on Thursday. If anybody has, arguments about this, or questions or different opinions. But in general, for the tone policing stuff, yes, I think, you know, they just have an hour to fill with like crap, and they act like you're on salary. Like, you should have said it this way. It would have been more professional.
Yep.
This is not a professional environment. I don't get paid to do this. This is like, you know, 1 hour out of my time that I took on a Saturday. So no, I don't have to be professional. This is not my job. That's it. Like, if you want to actually improve this country, Robbie, Batya, whatever, start doing something. Like, start doing something other than this shitty show. Because this is just, The Hill is just, I don't judge them that much, actually. Like, when I saw the segment, I kind of laughed and I was like, you know, whatever. Everybody needs a job, right? Everybody has to pay the bills. All of us have jobs that involve some kind of BS in some way or another. Maybe not you, Sabby, because you work at something that you're passionate about. But you know, my job, like the jobs that I've had, have some BS. You know, it's just shit that you have to put up with at work. So like, I don't even judge them. But ultimately, The Hill is, you know, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous show. You know, they're not telling the truth. And I don't even know if they're trying to brand themselves as independent or mainstream media. Maybe they've just accepted that they're mainstream media. I don't care what they say. I really don't. My thing was like reaching out to the people in my area, you know, seeing if it got shared on Twitter, and it actually worked because like, for example, one girl reached out to me and she was like, oh, I live in Queens, you know, I want to join. 2 or 3 people at least, people were like, I want to sign up. Is there a sign up? I'm like, no, there isn't a sign up, but it would be great if you joined us on Call-In, you know, if you joined us, if you went to indienews.network, if you followed my Twitter, I'll try to come up with a strategy. If more people actually join up, and if you disagree with the strategy, then you can tell us why. You know, I'm not like, you know, the queen of anything. This is supposed to be like a organic thing.
Okay, let's go on.
Obviously, if all it was the clip we saw, okay, I guess that's fine. But like you know, it has to be done in a certain way because you can't shout down the other.
I'm sorry, I have to chime in here. He said it has to be done in a certain way. And it is very clear to me they don't understand what happens at these town halls. Again, I've been to town halls, you've been to town halls. Again, as I said at the beginning of the show, of the segment, those questions are already chosen. They already know which questions are going to be answered. So most of the people there don't get to ask a question anyway. And even if Lucy would have had that question written down, that question would have been skipped over. You know, there's certain things they're not going to respond to. The controversial questions they're not going to respond to. So again, they're talking about something I feel like they don't really know about. And I feel like the right thing to do would have been to bring Lucy on. Lucy is not unreachable. Lucy's DMs, at least last time I checked, your DMs weren't closed. Lucy's not unreachable. And this is somebody who canvassed for AOC. This is somebody who helped get AOC elected in 2018. And why not reach out, you know, why not extend the offer and reach out to Lucy and bring Lucy on the show so she can tell you exactly what happened at the town hall. Lucy is active on Twitter. I don't understand this. I really don't. Like, to me, I felt like that was a missed opportunity.
People who are there who all want to get questions in. So I think AOC should definitely be asked about it. I'm glad activists are confronting her about it. Yeah. But you don't have a right to like take over an entire event like that. So that's.
I don't think that took over the entire event. Like, you guys saw Lucy talk for what? How many? 2 minutes maybe? Like,
well, they were. I was after the cutoff point, so there were a lot of people waiting to have questions that just had to leave. So, and the Q&A was like 15 minutes, and AOC's PowerPoint presentation was like 1 hour, one hour and a half of talking points of all of the money that she claims, $19 million, that she claims to have delivered to the area. We have 650,000 people in our area. 19 million isn't going to do anything. There's people that need homes, Medicare for all, amnesty, reparations. Like, what about the big issues? Do you think like funneling $19 million or $10 million into some kind of immigration aid nonprofit, or they also said that they were providing the most laughable things, like, you know, a $5,000 credit to convert an electric stove. People are homeless, you know,
Right.
people need education, like housing, basic services, and they're talking about electric stove, help filling out immigration forms when there's no amnesty law to add a process that allows people to apply for citizenship. It's ridiculous. This is just like, you know, these like little crumbs. And then people show up, like the older people who are smart in that way, they show up because they know that they give out crumbs at these town halls, right? And, you know, but the questions they take, like one guy was like when is my social security check coming in? Or, you know, things like this, like, that are very, I wouldn't say they're not important on an individual level, but definitely nothing about the 100 billion to Ukraine or anything about any overarching issue that really makes a difference in a lot of people's lives. It was all like, Lewis, actually, that video that you showed, that one was really good because he got really angry because she started saying that, this was ridiculous. She started saying that, I wish I had like videoed the whole thing, that basically our currency is going to go downhill in June, and that if Congress does not raise the debt ceiling, which the bumblebee called the theft ceiling, and if they don't get Republicans to raise the debt ceiling, then that's going to result in cuts to Medicare and Social Security. So, you know, the whole thing was set up. It was like, if we don't fight Republicans, our currency is going to go down the shitter in June, and you're going to have no Medicare, Social Security. It was like fear mongering and that's when Lewis got mad, and he was like, "This is not true. Both parties have cut Medicare, Social Security. You know this. You know that Biden has always been a fan of cutting Medicare. And that's something that's really important to these older voters. So, you know, it's like, it was crazy the way she lied. She said that she voted against the defense budget, which she did not. She did it the first time, but recently she did not vote against any defense budget. So, I don't know what the solution to this is, but I feel like people should be heckling in every town hall. Like every town hall that these or, you know, any Republicans too, like go heckle them too. I don't.
That's right. I'll go on a little bit more here.
Yeah,
that's the line I would draw.
Like, it weakens the claim. Like, you don't have to stand there and scream, why are we giving this money to Nazis in Ukraine? Like, come on. Like, it's, you know, it's like, we can talk about the Azov battalion as having a kind of, you know, neo-Nazi valence to it. We can talk about the fact that only a third of the weapons and a third of the money that we're sending to Ukraine makes it to the front. We can talk about all that stuff. But if you approach somebody who has a real role in making decisions about this, and you start throwing around language like that, do you really think AOC is not going to go back to Washington and be like, that woman had a point. You know, why are we, no. All it does is make it harder for people to take a stand. All it does is make her associate a real important critique about where our money is going with the wrong side of things, as opposed to being like, hey, maybe that person has a point. You know, maybe I should be talking to, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene about this, you know,
This is really, I think, foolish on Batya's part, because she's speaking as if AOC doesn't already realize and acknowledge the fact that the money is not going in the right places. She's speaking as though this is a protection for AOC here. I want to be very clear, people. This is a protection, because the way that she's talking about this, she's talking about it in a way that maybe AOC just doesn't understand that the money is not being spent the way that it should be. AOC 100% realizes that the money is not going to the people. So Batya, in this discussion, she is running cover for AOC. Although she said she agrees with the things that Lucy said, she's still running cover, and she's still tone policing, because she's saying, well, this woman, when she's referring to Lucy, shouldn't have said it in this way. Well, who made Batya the authority over town hall questions. Like, who, you guys see what I mean about the gatekeeping? The gatekeeping is like, and it's not just these two in this particular situation. Lucy, we've seen this as a pattern. We have seen this as a pattern where PMCs, they do it on Twitter too. They come in and try to tell activists, this is not the way you should organize. You're doing this incorrectly. Look at the way people smeared and criticized the Medicare for All marches last year. A lot of PMCs were doing that. People that some of you like too, to be real. So it's always the people who are not a part of the equation that want to criticize it from the outside when they're not taking any part. They're not activists. They're not protesters. And as soon as you criticize them, they'll be quick to tell you, well, I'm not an activist. Well, I'm not an organizer. Great. I'm glad that you acknowledge that. Then don't try to tell us how to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever, like this whole lady's argument is that it doesn't sit well with her, like it gives her an uneasy feeling in her stomach or whatever. It doesn't really matter because, well, first of all, she probably did not even research to find out who I am.
No.
Or like even wonder, she probably was just like Spanish speaker, probably doesn't speak English. That's it. She probably, this is probably what she thought. And she didn't reach out. And then she says that it sits funny with her and that she doesn't think that it'll reach that many people. Actually, she's wrong. It reached a lot of people. It reached people in the area that tweeted at me after that. And they were like, how can I join? How can I help? So it actually worked very well because Batya and Robbie are not my target audience. So
right.
like this it didn't work at all. My goal was to register people in my area, like get them to understand some of the things that are actually happening. And I think it worked very well. And I think it would have worked better if more people showed up at these town halls and did it, because a lot of the people that go are older voters, older people. There's very few younger people at these town halls, but considering the fact that I've done a lot of these polite, incremental things in the past that have gotten very little attention, for years. I even helped canvass for this horrible woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and now I regret it. So I did all of those civil things. So, she doesn't understand like the whole background and buildup of the situation that we're in, that we've had it. We have tried all of the nice ways. We've tried to do the canvassing and the letter writing, and we've tried to make a phone call, or this doesn't work.
This is what I was trying to tell people too. Like, I knew, that's why I was like, when I saw this segment, I was like, so if they would have spoken to Lucy, they would have known that Lucy had already tried all those other ways. And you're not alone. There's other people I've spoken to as well that told me they've contacted her office. They've tried writing the letters. There's no response, or they just get the runaround. Like, people have already tried that. And people have reached their breaking point. I'm gonna play this last part right here, because this is where they start to disagree.
He's like actually been very staunchly anti-war. We need to be finding more ways to make our message get heard.
Well, I
agree with you. Ask the question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think the anti-AOC side, and are just the people against the Democratic consensus on funding Ukraine, I think they can't help but bring up the kind of Nazi line because of how much Democrats hurled the "you're a Nazi, you're a fascist" line at anyone and everyone who supported Donald Trump. Now that it is true that a component of the Ukrainian resistance, not the entire army, but a component of it is a Nazi-ish aligned group, and we are in a sort of indirect way funding that group, is an irony that Democrats, again, who called everyone a Nazi, have to own. And I think it's just totally fair to confront them on it, even if, screaming at someone, or as a member of Congress, that you're a Nazi, you're funding Nazis, is not going to be a good persuasion tactic. I mean, obviously the idea is not necessarily to persuade AOC, but I guess to get the other audience members to wake up to this reality, or maybe if AOC attends enough events where all she does is face pushback on this issue, then she will prioritize it more, or she'll say, hey, my constituents are really angry about this. You know, even a small number of phone calls I understand, this is what I've been told, to a Congress member's office phone will make them think that that tons of people are fired up about an issue, because people so rarely do that.
Is that necessarily the case, Lucy? Because people have called AOC's office and that hasn't changed anything.
Maybe in the small town or whatever suburb he is in, where there's like a strong maybe community group or something where politicians actually care what their constituents think because the people in the area have money or donate to those politicians. But I can guarantee that if in my 10-second time frame I had said something as stupid as what Robbie just did, which is like, okay, maybe some members of the Ukrainian army are a little bit Nazi-ish, but at the same time, indirectly, we're funding a component of the Ukrainian army that is a little bit Nazi-ish. I can guarantee that message would not have worked in 10 seconds. So this is just like when he went into this whole Nazi-ish, like that, you know, we're funding Nazis in Ukraine. That's it. Like, I didn't say that Ukrainians are all Nazis. I never said that. I said Nazis in Ukraine. These rebel groups that the United States funds, not just in Ukraine, but in Syria, in the Middle East, and other parts of the world, in order to create chaos in these countries. So that's what I was saying. People understand it. I don't know what Robbie's talking about. He's really going off the deep end. Like,
I think it's just, you know, something I think it would have been really helpful. I think it would have been really helpful for them to have you on for this segment. Like, I really do. They're trying to guess what else happened and what your intentions were. And what they should have just done was just to reach out to you, just like they reach out to everybody else. They should have just reached out to you and invited you on. And I think that would have cleared up a lot of things. I really do. It just, to me, I don't like the tone policing. I don't like the whole civility politics. Things that have happened, real movements that have won in this country were not done civilly. The women's rights movement, even the civil rights movement, even though Martin Luther King said that, well, we have to be nonviolent, some of the protests that occurred during the civil rights movement, people complain about those same type of actions happening today. No, you're not supposed to block off the roads. They blocked off the roads during the civil rights movement. They had the sit-ins at different restaurants. People complain about that. So it wasn't civil at the end of the day. Malcolm X was not civil. Blocking off roads wasn't civil. The women's movement, them having a hunger strike, that was not civil. The Black Panthers was not civil. So what you have is you have a group of PMCs, this professional managerial class, that they want to have reforms, but they don't want the fight for the reform to make them uncomfortable. And that's a big problem.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Sabby.
I can't. Well, Lucy, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to talk about this after the show on Call In tonight, because I want to hear the audience's opinions about this, about civility politics, because I feel like being too nice to politicians is what got us in this position to begin with. Being too nice to people like Bernie Sanders and AOC, you know, that's just my take.
Yeah, and honestly, like, especially if you are somebody that has a lot of responsibilities or, you know, other things to do, I actually think that this form of protest, and I've done other things, like I've been to your big protests and, like, you know, you've done letter writing, all of these things. I feel like this type of protest is very effective, and it's actually relatively safe, because it looks really bad for them to beat somebody up at a town hall. You know, those things are televised, whatever, so it's relatively safe to do. You can go, you just got to get it in 10 seconds. You don't have to, you know, there's no, you shouldn't be violent. I wasn't actually being violent, but I had to raise my voice because otherwise nobody was going to hear me. So I actually think out of the forms of protest, like, I think it worked pretty well. It's a safe thing to do for those that are concerned about safety. I'd say go for it.
I hear you. Well, Lucy, thank you so much for coming on. You're going on to another show later on this week, correct?
I'm going on Hardlands on Friday, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. And how can people find you again one more time?
You can find me at LucyCan22. And also Indy asked me to share his plug because he's helped me out a lot. IndyNews.network.
All right. Lucy, thank you so much.
All right. Bye. Thank you so much, Sabby.
Bye. All right, guys. So yeah, a lot of fire, a lot of power there. I really do wish they would have had Lucy come on to talk to her herself instead of trying to assume what she meant there and what her intentions were. Let's go to a couple of comments and then we're going to go to the next story. Deathacale said Malcolm X told his peers to register independent in the ballot or bullet speech. Interesting. Rocco says Batya wrote a book about the working class of the past, but doesn't want to support the working class of the present. That's interesting. Joy, I do not want to hear from two rich people chastising an activist who is representing the people better than their elected person, AOC. Deldia says, I have a right to take over any event I can. Roger says New York State is #1 in income inequality for the 10th year in a row. That's crazy, isn't it? Oracle Adelphi says this is that Democrat/establishment apparatus trying to police the narrative and shape the way Lucy is perceived and diminish, distract from her message. 100%. Thank you so much for that.